Welcome to The Unhinged Empty Nesters, the podcast where art, culture, travel, and spur happenings collide. I'm Jessica Lonergan.
And I'm Frank Lonergan, and together we're on a mission to break down the barriers between art and audience, one story at a time.
We are thrilled to introduce our little corner of the podcasting universe, where we will chat with artists, innovators, and fellow spur members about what inspires them, and maybe uncover a few secrets along the way.
We are thrilled to introduce someone who perfectly embodies the spirit of creativity and connection that drives everything we do. It's the one and the only
Judith Owen. Ooh.
Yay! I feel like there should be some kind of fanfare. Yeah. That was a beautiful intro.
Judith is a singer-songwriter whose music defies categorization, blending jazz, blues, classical, and rock into deeply personal and evocative sounds. Her work is celebrated for its honesty, humor, and emotional depth.
But she's not just a musician. She's a storyteller and a performer who transforms each show into an unforgettable experience. Her Christmas album and accompanying holiday show have redefined the genre, offering what can only be described as modern feminist theater infused with joy, poignancy, and wit. We first met Judith in New Orleans, where magic seems to swirl around every corner.
Our dear friends at the Prez Hall introduced us, and the fabulous Alexa Pulitzer. This all connect. From the moment we encountered her brilliance, both on and off the stage, we knew she was someone we wanted to bring deeper into the spur universe.
Today, we'll talk about her career, her feminist-infused performance style, and my favorite time of year, her Christmas album, and also those unforgettable New Orleans moments. Plus, we'll get a glimpse into what's next and what continues to inspire her and where your creative journey is heading.
Judith, welcome to the Unhinged Empty Nesters. We are thrilled to have you.
I'm thrilled to be, seeing your glorious faces, but I'm slightly annoyed because I'm wondering why I didn't actually just get you to write my bio after that. This is quite fantastic, I must say. It's just exquisite, and I thank you for it. It was a pleasure meeting you both in New Orleans, honestly. I find it to be the crossroads of the world. It's the strangest thing. It's this tiny little island of creativity and liberal thought and of outsiders, and right in the middle of Louisiana. But of course, it's the birthplace of jazz, and it draws artists, musicians, filmmakers, writers, you name it, artistic people. And I have met the most interesting people in my life here, and you are two more. So I'm thrilled to be on your podcast.
Well, New Orleans is one of our favorite cities in the world.
I just love anybody who loves New Orleans. And you understand better than anybody that there are two categories of people, and that's people who love New Orleans and people who just don't get it at all. And we don't care about those. We just send them packing. Goodbye, we say.
Yeah. Turn off the podcast. Go away.
Go. Leave now.
With spur happenings, we try not to repeat too many cities, but New Orleans is on their tour, our annual tour. It will always be part of our movable feast, and it's because of people like you, Judith. So who you are and being a part of that amazing New Orleans fabric.
Tell by her voice, she's not a local New Orleans lady.
No,
can you tell us a little more about your background?
Yeah, it's the accent, isn't it? Really, I'm one of a clutch of people, but there's quite a few Brits down here who feel the same way as I do. John Cleary is one of them, the incredible photographer. Steve Rapport is another. There are filmmakers down here. There are people who are just, again, drawn by this place that we, being a Brit and even more particularly being a Welsh person who has been, they talk about the Welsh as about everyone being singers as a joke, but it is so much the truth about the Welsh. I mean, it's like there are certain things that cultures are drawn towards and are known for, and the Welsh are known for their voices, both spoken and singing. And so it's really the thing that we love to do, and is really part of the culture. And so for me, growing up as a child, hearing music from New Orleans, which I realized, as an adult, once I got here, that I was hearing this music since, from day one, not realizing it. But it's not that surprising that I would end up here and be that eternal tourist, I suppose. But the thing that you get when you're an outsider and you know how special a place is, I feel like the only place that doesn't really appreciate New Orleans properly is America. But the rest of us in the world look to it as being an absolute gem and as a place to be adored and loved and protected and honored.
This is the first song you remember making a deep impression on you.
Well, I was a child in London because my parents left Wales when I was but a sprog, a hardly born person, because my father was an opera singer and he wanted to pursue his career in opera and became a very, very successful opera singer at Royal Opera House, Covent Garden, and throughout the world. And what I remember mostly from the earliest time is hearing him doing his scales in the morning and warming up before he went to the opera house for his rehearsals in the morning. Hearing classical music, of course, ad nauseum, very, very melancholy, depressing Welsh music, which is really the heart and soul of me. That's why I've got the soul to do this. But the song that really kicked it all up that I remember and why I am the person I am today, I think, in a big part, doing the music I'm doing as far as in this, jazz and blues journey that I've been on, is, or rather was, a 45 of my father's in the midst, the Puccinis and the Rachmaninoffs and the Chopin. They were this sexy collection of 45s that he had, which were of the things that he had collected when he was a kid in the 50s. And one of them was by the supreme, completely forgotten Nellie Lutcher. Fine Brown Frame was the name of the song. And Nellie Lutcher was the greatest badass I have ever heard in my entire life. And at age 4 or 5, I already knew when I heard that. I didn't know it was about fancying a god of a man and lusting over somebody and wanting to do the evil with them. What I heard was absolute power, joy. I mean, just the most incredible jazz pianist and the most amazing singer with her own style, but a sense of humor and just this oozing charisma and strength. And when I heard that, I knew. Like I said, I didn't know what it meant, but it didn't matter. I felt her, and I felt that female strength and presence, and I felt that's what really kind of that was like a light went on for me, even at a very young age, because I would literally run around the house, my sister and I, singing Fine Brown Frame, the top of our lungs, which is always hysterical when you're 5, and it's about wanting, as I said, to do the lovely deed, and it's marvelous. But here's the funny thing: years later, in fact, I would say, let me see, what is it now? 4 years ago, maybe, if that. I met Nellie Lutcher's granddaughter because I made a record that was really because of Nellie, and it was a celebration of those women at that period, late 40s, early 50s, who instilled in me this desire to be a powerhouse of a woman and to be an unapologetic woman, which is the hardest thing in the world to be, I have to say, when you haven't grown up with that in mind, where you haven't been taught or shown how to be that, or you haven't had a role model. But you hear it in these women, and that's what was so important. And I spoke to her wonderful granddaughter, and she told me that when she was 8 years old, Nellie would sing that song in the front parlor to her, and she'd be running around the house singing it too, not knowing what on earth it meant, but knowing that it made her smile and feel good, and it made her just want to dance around the room with joy. And that really is so moving to hear that, because that's a big part of who I am, who I've become, and who I've been long, who I knew was always inside and wanted to be, and now here I am, exactly that person. And it's a great deal thanks to Nellie Lutcher.
And as you've said, music has always been your lens into understanding the world. Can you pinpoint the moment where you knew it would become your life's work?
Well, there's nothing harder than going into the same business as your parents, and particularly not
Yeah.
my mother, who was a who was a big band joy and loved big band so much. She was a great dancer. She's a really wonderfully beautiful woman. And I think I get my love of red lipstick and dancing from her. There's no doubt. But you never want to really follow in the footsteps, because there's only usually room for one star. I'm going to be honest about this. It's very hard. Although he was my biggest fan, as it turned out, as it became. It was amazing what it turned into. But I put that on hold as far as I kept that private. My singing, my writing, my everything was a private thing, because I didn't feel like I was enough, as we often don't when we're young. And so I went to one of those Brit schools in London, where I was really training to be an actress, because that's really what I wanted to be. That was the thing that really spoke to me, because I am an actress at heart. But I also studied dance, modern dance, and that, of course, is a huge part of who I am as well. And then music on the side. It wasn't, it wasn't meant to be that at all. And it was during one of those like music sort of classes, and it was the very beginning of the first year, the first term, and the teacher said, does anybody play an instrument? Does anybody write music? And I don't know why, because why would I? I still don't understand to this day, because it was so private. But I put my hand up, and she said, well, and you have to understand that this is at the point at which I didn't even open my eyes, as most of us don't when we're young, because you can't bear to open your eyes and see people around you, because it is so private and it is such a personal thing. You can only do it alone. So I got to the piano and I played this song, and it's the saddest song probably I've ever written, and I've written a lot of sad songs, but it was one of the first songs I wrote. It was for my mother, who had passed away a few years earlier, and I play the song, eyes squeeze shut, and I stop, and there's a horrendous silence of just like, it felt like it was hours. It was probably 30 seconds or something. And I just like put head down. I go back to sit in the chair, and there's a silence. And I feel a hand on my hand. And I turned to this young woman that was sitting next to me, who was unbelievably fabulous and gorgeous and amazing and great director. She was already a star. And I looked up at her, and there were tears pouring down her face. And she just crushed my hand. And then I looked around the room, and there were a couple of other people crying. And I looked at the teacher, and she was just sort of like looking at me as if she'd seen a ghost. And she said, tell me, why are you training to be an actress again? And that was it. And it was the fork in the road that it really meant that I could never, people wouldn't let me after that. People wouldn't let me, even though I acted and I was in productions, and it was always a large part of me, and of course the dance too. But the music then became the thing that people wanted to hear, wanted to know more about, and it was an extraordinary thing, because we became fond friend. Julia Barsley, who was the woman sitting next to me, became a really extraordinary theatre director, and she had actually her fiance had died the year earlier of leukemia, and a very, very young person. And that was exactly the understanding, the therapy we both needed, but it was the thing we both understood. And the two other people probably in the room said exactly the same thing. And I didn't have to say a word. We were all there. And it was the most connecting experience I've ever had in my life. And that was really what I needed to know, that I wasn't just doing this for me. It wasn't just my self-medication and therapy. It actually touched other people. And I really never looked back.
Well, we've been very lucky to see you perform 3, maybe 4 times.
Yeah.
You performed live for Spur Happenings during our trips to New Orleans in fall of 2023 at Toulouse Theater, and then again during Jazz Fest at the Mansion in the Quarter. Performances, they are captivating.
It comes from the singer-songwriter, it comes from the theatre, it comes from the Welsh melancholy, it comes from the dance, it comes from the acting. It comes from every skill that I've honed over the years, and it almost feels like I've kept it. I've been gathering, hunting and gathering all this time, so that I would reach a point where actually I could just let rip and take all these things and let rip. Because in COVID, I think it was the beginning of me actually saying, I'm just going to do the things that I've dreamt of doing since I was a kid. And one of them was, the biggest one was to honor these women, to sing this music I heard as a child that saved me as a child, that gave me hope and brought joy to me in a beautiful childhood, but also a sad childhood with a very ill mother. And it was that paradox that made me hold so tightly to music and need it so badly, as we all do, which is why we rely so much upon it. And then to reach a point in COVID where it's like, you know what, I'm not putting anything off anymore. I don't know who knows what's happening tomorrow? Who knows if life will ever come back? Who knows what's going to happen? But I'm not wasting another minute. And most importantly, I'm not going to hide anymore or apologize for who I am or be the pleaser or feel like I'm not enough. Or you can fill in the blanks here, but it's everything that people grow up with, especially women, never feeling that they're enough. Always feeling that they have to please everyone first, that they have to make sure everybody else is emotionally okay and taken care of, and then put themselves always on the back seat and in the back, burner. And it's a tough thing to learn not to do when that's how you've been brought up and that's how you've been feel that what your job is. I grew up wanting to make my mother happy, wanting to make her well, and I failed, and I couldn't. But
this story you tell is it's amazing. I love not only the selection of works that you bring to your show and the story that you weave through the entire performance and bringing those women's voices to the forefront, many of whom, one generation below has never even heard of.
Never heard of.
Which is incredible that you give these women a fresh stage. But the way that you pull that together is so authentic and participatory and engaging. It really revolutionizes how these have been performed.
Well, thank you so much.
When these were originally performed, it was just women in front of a band on the stage in a pretty dress and off.
Well,
that's what the other to talk about.
No, these women did. What these women were doing, they were flying in the face of, as you say, the majority of women who were decoration, and they were singing romantic songs. But these women were singing songs about female sexuality, and they were celebrating it, and they were leading with their strengths and their power. And that's why they had very short careers, because they were seen as being novelties more than anything. And also, it was kind of a little bit, they opened the door, by the way, for the Nina Simones and the Arethas and everybody that came through. They were the bridge between the Bessie Smiths and the Ma Rainey's. They weren't bumping and grinding it. They were evolved, remarkable musicians who ran their bands and arranged and produced. They did it, and they were in control. And we're talking now, like I said, late 40s, early 50s. And they had horrible lives. And what they led with, you see, this is what I really relate to. They had, and my life compared to them has been a rainbow, believe me. Their lives were so hard and so brutal, but they led with joy. They led with a sense of like happiness, with a feeling that you just felt so alive.
It's not a spoiler alert because everyone's going to go out and see your show somewhere, somehow. But I love that then it's about maybe 7 songs in where you pull out Fever.
Oh, yeah.
And your arrangement to Fever, it just takes that whole audience to another level that you just sink in and melt.
Well, it's, I think it's like everything. you have to pull the audience in. You have to bring them in with something that they feel you pull them in with something that is joyful and easy and makes you want to move and dance and you feels good. And I am being that front woman and I'm being the entertainer and I'm taking charge of the whole room. So you're already confident that you're in good hands. And then
you seduce them.
You seduce them. You put them in your state of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to basically literally make love to them, in that way of just now then taking it to somewhere that is so deeply entrenched that they are, to me, a show, if you can't be that, it's like valleys and mountains and valleys and depths and the sea and it's everything in between. And there are different points. And then by the time I get to the piano myself, at the end, at a given point on the show, then it's like people can't believe that this is all, this is what's happening, because I think you tend to think, oh, I know what this is.
Absolutely. So seductive, haunting. Let's give Fever a quick listen.
Never know how much I love you. You'll never know how much I care. When you put your arms around me, I got a fever that is hard to bear. You give me fever. When you kiss me, fever when you hold me tight. Fever in the morning, fever all through the night.
Wow, amazing. On another note, we have the holidays coming out. And your latest Christmas album is such a beautiful blend of humor and soul and reimagination. How did you approach shaping these classics to fit your unique voice and perspective?
I've recorded a lot of Christmas songs over the last few years, and whether it be with my band, the incredible New Orleans band, the Callers, or with marvelous artists like Jason Marsalis on Vibes, whatever it might be, and I'm constantly wanting to bring the feeling of Christmas, which is a holiday that I have a love-hate relationship, as most people do, because I adore it. I'm passionate about it. It makes me feel like a kid again. That's the whole point of it. And yet I'm homesick. I miss my family. I'm 6,000 miles away. I miss the people who are no longer with us. And it is that bittersweet thing. And I think everybody does feel that way over Christmas time. Unless you're 5 years old, it does feel that way. But it is the time that adults should actually be reconnecting with their child side. That is the point of it, and to feel those wonderful feelings that you felt as a kid. So the latest iteration, which I'm thrilled about, is my big band, the J.O. Big Band, songs which have just been released as part of a 14-song collection, Judith Owen Swings Christmas. And I got to tell you, there is nothing in this world that is as joy-filled as singing in front of a big band. And for the audience, it's just a thing that, it's a lost art form. And of course, I said this to you before about recording down here. I can't imagine anywhere else where I could have recorded this music. The music of Nellie Lutcher and Julia Lee and Peggy Lee, as you just heard, all the women that I adore. But then I could not have done a big band record anywhere else. The greasy sexiness of this place, the grit, the grime, the sense of that it's historic, that it hangs, its legacy hangs heavily. And these people, they swing like I've never heard swing since Frank Sinatra or Ella. It's the Nelson Riddle Quincy swing that you just don't get to hear anymore. And now I get to put my fresh take on it and my fresh arrangements on it. And it's extraordinary again to have really brought a fantasy and a dream I've had since I was a kid to fruition. I'm really in an endless, constant state of gratitude these days.
Two decisions or two choices in the planning, and I got to pick out the cake, and I wanted a big band. That was it.
So we had a 19-piece orchestra.
19-piece swinging big band, backyard of Jessica's family.
We covered the pool with a black and white checkered board dance floor. It was amazing.
You're a man after my own heart. I know you have great taste. I knew that already, but now you even more so. There is nothing like it. You know that. And what better time, to quote one of my own songs, but what better time or no better time than to get a big band going than at Christmas time. It's the time that you yearn for nostalgia, that you yearn for that feeling of how things were. We don't even know how they were, but we watch It's a Beautiful Life every year and Wizard of Oz, and we know the feeling, we know the sense in our bones, and that's what big band is all about. You cannot help but want to dance, smile, feel good, just want to. It is a blissful state, and I am so happy to be able to be a part of that. And I played, believe me, with big bands before. I played in London. I played in France. I played with many big bands. They are not all made equal. We know this.
No.
Swing is something you can do or you can't. And you can't be taught it. It's just in you. To swing hard, to swing as that big 18-wheeler come right, I'm in the room recording with them live. I wish you'd been there. It would have been, that would have been an extraordinary thing.
I can smell it. I can feel it. It's the texture of New Orleans. There's something that just,
And by the way, for your lovely listeners, if you want to see how that feels, or rather want to see it in action, see the work behind the scenes, the first single off Swing's Christmas is, it was filmed. It was made into a musical video. No Better Time.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, and that's on. Yeah, you can see that on the YouTube channel. Yeah, absolutely. It's it's a big thing to undertake. It's so expensive. It's such a lot of bodies, as you know. Good grief, you were married to one, but the payoff is so worthwhile.
Can perhaps make someone laugh, why not now? If there was a way to make someone's day, why not do it now? To be perfectly honest, December's upon us. Go out and be kind. There's no better time than holiday time. Oh, maybe it's time for you and I to be together. What could be better than to spend each and every holiday with you?
Better Time, one of my favorite songs from your album. Can you tell a little bit about the story behind
it? I'm so angry that I didn't write it. It hurts me to my deepest core. But here's the thing. Someone I love very much did, which is my musical director, David Tukanowski. He wrote it with a couple of writers down in Nashville. And when I heard it being played a Jeremy Davenport version, the only version that's ever been done. And I just thought, this sounds like a classic song that I've heard my whole life. What's going on? You never hear things like this. So to me, that was like, nah. And he'd said to me, is there anybody do you think would be good, that would want to cover it? And I was like, yes. Yes, so if you even try to give it to somebody else, I'm going to have you... No. So I knew immediately that was going to be one of the great songs to record, and because it kicks off the whole thing on the album, because it really does sum up what we want at Christmas and why we do love Christmas, because it's that sense of what Christmas should be about. It shouldn't be about the money and the toys and the this and how many the gifts and everybody and screaming at each other and the tension and the stress. It should actually be about the humanity and the generosity of spirit and the appreciation of the people that you love around you and having what you have in life, because we so rarely sit down and think, oh, I cannot believe this is my life. Now, it's a hard time too for all the reasons that I said, but this song really does sum all of that up. And so that was a great discovery. And I'm very, very very, very happy I got to do it. And by the way, all these songs are, I knew what I wanted. I knew as far as when it came to tempos, arrangements, lines, the things that I would sing and record and then send to truly one of the greatest big band arrangers called John Wasson, who, like Nelson Riddle, is also a trombone player. It's funny but I guess that really comes in handy. But what he did on this, what he did on them all, is just like sublime.
So as far as Christmas is concerned, what are your traditions that you bring to New Orleans or your family?
Well, it usually starts with me crying as I'm on the phone. I'm not joking. With me sobbing in my own Welsh depressed way to my sister in Ireland, like, I wish you were there. And then I get over that quickly, quicker than I used to. I used to just tell Harry that he was responsible for ruining my life. That's usually how Christmas started. And then by noon, I'd say, no, actually, you're the reason my life is wonderful. I love you. So you see how this happens.
Perfect.
You see what happens here. But these days, I'm happy to say, because I have this massive Christmas show, this big benefit that we do every year in New Orleans, Christmas Without Tears, which really is Christmas. And this year, it's big band. I am beside myself with the thought of doing that in this huge concert hall.
And where is that going to be performed?
That's going to be at the Orpheum in New Orleans, in the big classical room. That's December 17th. Christmas Without Tears. And really, it's like some of the greatest talent in New Orleans. They all do their party piece. It's a show that is like in our living room. I recreate the living room on the stage. Everybody's drinking and eating and gathering around the piano. It's very Welsh. It's how my Christmases were growing up. Everybody's singing close harmony. And it's so thrilling and wonderful. So Christmas for me is usually spent looking dreadful all morning in a toweling robe, like I've been dragged through a bush backwards, because I seem to be the only person working in the house. And I'm usually preparing for 20 people to come over for lunch, and I'm a mess. And then somehow it all comes together, and I throw the red lipstick on, and then I'm ready, and probably not washed, but who cares? And I'm cooking a turducken, which we all know is a thing of genius. I love
the turducken.
Oh my gosh, how they get a chicken and a duck and a turkey with crawfish stuffing. I'll never know how those creatures even move in real life. So I don't know what happens there. So I thought, you know what?
And what's next?
I mean, my calendar is already filled through into September as far as touring. I've got American, European, Australian, good grief, dates. I'm all over the place. And then, of course, Jazz Fest, the usual things here. And in the midst of that, I'll be starting the next album, because I don't let the grass grow I really don't. It's
Exactly.
just, what's the point? That's what life is about. So I will be running with my next iteration, which will be probably then to me it'll just be a step up even from what I've just done with the big band, because that's what I hear, that's what I want, and there's no one to say no.
Give the people what they want, Judith. Well, thank you so much,
Judith. It's been an absolute pleasure having you. I can't thank you enough. Two of your biggest fans. I will put in the show notes links to albums and concert dates and whatever else we can do to keep the
any
fabulous
of the,
Judith Owen train going.
oh my gosh. Well, I'm like all on all the bloody socials as they are. And it's easy to find me, but I'm looking forward. I really am looking. I mean, the year's not done. I've got a lot of shows coming up, but I really am looking forward to 25 because this has been an incredible few years, and you saw it early on actually, but it's been something that I was not expecting, and I am, like as I said earlier, I feel like I'm in a constant state of grace and gratitude.
Phenomenal. Well, I hope that as we're expanding our Spur curated travel and concierge services, that when our guests are in New Orleans, that you'll help them navigate the streets of the Crescent City.
I would love. You know what? I am so proud of this city. I'm a blow-in. It's my, my adopted city. I live, obviously I live in London too, and Harry's from LA, so we're all over the place. But this city has won my heart. It's so special. It deserves so much more love than it gets, and that's what we're all really in the business of doing.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with us and allowing us to share you with our community. It's been an absolute delight.
And making our holidays that much happier.
Oh, well, yeah, I feel like you're two very, very good podcast hosts because you're, it's like, obviously, husband and wife doesn't always work, does it? But ultimately, you got a really nice feel about you, and you're good people. So I feel like that's the only thing you can do is, like I said, be authentic and have that conversation in life that really kind of connects with other people. That's the point of it all. It really is.
Thank you for listening. Join us again for more animated conversations with the artists, creatives, and members who inspire Spur happenings and keep us dedicated to being completely unhinged empty nesters. We so appreciate you supporting us